That's because Nectar of Devotion is an analysis of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. See, in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the topics are presented in a certain order, according to the levels of advancement of consciousness. But they're not analyzed in that way. They're simply presented more or less unsystematically. Well, here's a story, and then, oh, what's your question? Well, that reminds me of another story. Here's this other story, and then on and on. Sometimes there's stories within stories within stories, and so on. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is wonderful. It's like an encyclopedia. Its scope is just so vast. Nectar of Devotion takes all that material and it puts it in a specific order. It actually puts it in the order in which you will need it to accomplish the process described in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which is to change your consciousness from material to spiritual. So Nectar of Devotion is very scientific. It gives a whole process, step-by-step process for freeing our consciousness from the influence of the material energy and putting our consciousness under the influence of the spiritual energy. From Mahamaya to Yoga Maya. Okay? Mahamaya means material illusion. And Yoga Maya means spiritual illusion. We're always in illusion. Because our power of consciousness is tiny, it's atomic. But we can either be in material consciousness or we can be in spiritual consciousness or some combination of both in the transitional stage. As we are advancing in devotional service, we're neither completely in material consciousness nor completely in spiritual consciousness. We're in some mixture. It's only when we get to the final, highest stage of devotional service that we become in pure devotional service, pure spiritual consciousness. So that's what the last few chapters have been describing. Up until then, there's been a whole progression of different processes, different states, and different references from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Please don't do that. It's very distracting. And we have seen gradually how one progresses through all these different stages until he reaches the perfectional stage. So the point, the big point here is that there is a perfectional stage, that there is a known, definite method for reaching the highest stage, and that one should progress through all these different stages until he actually gets there. That might seem like a trivial point, but I've been in devotional, so-called devotee societies where it was more or less assumed that nobody could become perfect. And that's not right. That's not correct. That's not the philosophy of Nectar of Devotion, and it's not the philosophy of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and it's not the philosophy of Vedānta-sūtra. Vedānta-sūtra spends quite a bit of time talking about how unless there's something really, unless you've done something really, really bad, you can attain perfection in this lifetime. The process is specifically designed for that. And then Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam tells story after story after story, and the Padma Purana and the Vishnu Purana tell story after story after story about devotees who attained that perfection by different devotional methods. So the message that we get from the scripture is very different. The message that we get from the scripture is that you can attain this highest goal in life. There's several of our students right now, I mean, according to the things they post on our forum and like that, they're there. They're there. They're getting all these symptoms as described in Nectar of Devotion, all these things are happening in their lives, and you know. And this is just as by on the internet. Imagine if they were actually here and living this life every day and so on. How much power there is in these activities. You can't imagine. Huh? So, I got into a whole rap, didn't I? I was just going to ask for questions. But now really, post your questions about this process and about the whole first section, 19 chapters of Nectar of Devotion that we have covered in the last few months. Wow, it's been 3 months, hasn't it? We've been going over Nectar of Devotion. Yeah. Since we got here, remember, since before we got the house, I started doing those recordings, and we posted them, and then Naviyovana Prabhu kindly transcribed them, and we got so many big discussions on the forum about it, and I mean, it's really just been great. Okay, is there questions?
Yes. A question from Amit. Is consciousness part of the soul or separate?
Is red part of this book, or is it separate? Shh. Don't give it away. Huh? Is white part of this cloth, or is it separate? Thank you. Is he responding?
Not yet.
Is anybody responding? Are they listening out there, or what? Hello? I asked a question.
David Lugan says it's a quality.
It's a quality. So it's part of, the quality is always part of the object. Huh? You can't separate them. That's the whole point. You cannot separate consciousness from the spirit soul. Consciousness is a quality of the spirit soul. Consciousness has no separate manifestation or existence from the spirit soul. When the spirit soul is present, consciousness is there. And when the spirit soul leaves the body, consciousness and all of its subsidiary qualities disappear at the same time. Consciousness is required for intelligence, perception, emotion, will, energy, desire, intention, initiative, personality, individuality, so many other qualities. And these are all qualities because they don't have any tangible manifestation. See, you can't take personality and put it in a test tube and make experiments with it. It's an intangible, just like consciousness. But it's a quality of a spirit soul. And when the spirit soul disappears from the body at death, all those qualities disappear at the same time. So,
Question from Theo. How do you know if you have done something really, really bad in a previous life?
It would be in your chart. You would see the reaction in your chart. You would have a difficult Saturn placement, or a weak sun, or a very nasty Mars or Ketu, Rahu-Ketu axis, something like that.
And in that case, do all these methods have no effect for you?
No, all these methods are good. They work with everybody, but you may have to go through the reactions to your previous activities before you get to the perfectional stage. And certainly, if a person has a lot of bad or difficult aspects in their chart from previous activities, this spiritual cultivation of spiritual consciousness will help them get through it. I don't know how I would have made it through Saturn period if I wasn't a devotee. Oh, it was just awful, and it went on and on and on. Whew. 27 years.